What is the level of preparedness of junior secondary schools in the country?
Actually, from what I've seen being aired from Kakamega Hill School, that is principally a private school, and therefore in the level of preparedness of the private schools is at least at around 70%, because quite a number of them, once the announcement was made, they had their own learners in the grade 6, and therefore they prepared the space. So there will be a lot of influx of quite a number of learners moving from public primary schools to join private junior secondary schools in grade 7, because the level of preparedness of public primary schools is still wanting. Because when the ministry set out the last week and the part of this week to go for these assessments, the assessments reveal that in some regions the public primary schools do not have the requisite facilities, and one area which is more seriously affected is the area of a laboratory. You have realized that Hill School has about 8 streams and 7 laboratories. They are boasting of that, and you can see that they are even advertising that the learners should join there. So that is the challenge. When it comes to the personnel, the Teacher Service Commission is recruiting about 31,000 teachers. 31,000 teachers, 9,000 are going to be permanent, and about 21 are going to be interns. That process is on, and therefore their level of competency to start teaching when the grade 7 are in school is still not going to be very effective, because they must be upgraded in terms of induction on the kind of curriculum they are facing.
Right.
And you have also seen that the director of Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, Professor Charles Ongondo, is saying that the process is very slow, but they expect that by the end of the month the books will be in school. But you know, teachers are creative. Once the teachers are there, the learners are there, then there would be no problem. I think that is to the extent to which I can comment about this aspect. Yeah.
But in terms of requirements, I know the government had put a criteria as they're doing the inspections right now. A couple of issues, of course, they're looking at the enrollment, the availability of facilities, and one of the things you've mentioned there is laboratories, and that is one of the issues that public schools are facing. What are your thoughts on just how prepared they are in terms of the requirements itself, away from just the laboratories, especially the public schools? What should be done?
I think we only have a promissory note from government that by the end of the year, the parliament shall have released money to assist public primary schools where the junior secondary school is to be domiciled, shall have released money to these schools to build laboratories. As we talk, the only institutions with laboratories are private schools, but not a government school. So in that provision is there. The other requirement, which is very, very critical, is the space where people are. Private schools may be ready with the facilities, the basic facilities, but when it comes to space, at least the checklist according to the ministry is that at least in urban centers, most schools should have at least 1 acre, and in rural areas they should be about 4 acres. But one thing which is I know is that most schools do not meet that criteria. So we will be expecting a lot of congestion in our schools because of the reactive nature of the Ministry of Education in addressing this transition. So we must say that things may not work so well, but I don't want to give a doomsday kind of prophecy. We must be very hopeful and give the benefit of doubt that once the government releases funds, we should see construction going on in public primary schools where we expect laboratories to be there. We also expect the Teacher Service Commission to rationalize the staffing in our primary schools, because quite a number of the teachers have got very senior qualifications. They should give them opportunity to those who have the capacity to teach in junior secondary school to be there, because at least every school with one stream should have at least engaged about 9 teachers to handle junior secondary school because of the subject specialization which is there. So these are the challenges which must be surmounted. Yes.
One of the other things that people, of course, are talking about is, there is conversation that head teachers have been proposing new uniforms for junior secondary schools pupils. What is your take on that?
At least I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of people are looking at horizons for business. And this is one major area which is a real pity. In fact, the use of uniforms in schools is an archaic thing in this 21st century. They don't add value to learning. But now, when we are grappling with space infrastructure, then somebody is proposing to have change of uniform. So you can see the business mindset already infiltrating. And even that is the publication of books. The mindset, one subject area has about 8 approved books by the Ministry of Education. That means that business opportunists are eyeing business with a public good, which is education. That is the most unfortunate bit of it. But now, if uniforms have not been outlawed in our schools, then I don't think it is a big deal, because even if there's a change of uniform for junior secondary school, by the way, those who are in grade 6 who are going to grade 7 into secondary school with uniform, they would just transfer the same money they were supposed to have to buy blue uniform, now to buy red uniform. I think that one is not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, before we get into other issues, then, are you saying that, I mean, we should get away with uniforms completely?
To me, I think that it is only Kenya which now has this madness about uniform, and even boarding schools. The world over, you meet children or learners in a school bus, but they are having their own attire. What is there is that the schools should develop the capacity to maintain discipline even without uniform being a condition for joining. I went to school, and the idea of going to school in shoes in primary was not a factor. And I'm here, and it was not an issue. But our counterparts in town schools were having stockings, they were having shoes, they were polishing their shoes before they go to school. They had to go, and even uniform with ties and so on. Today they cannot afford those ties, but with me I can afford mine.
Right.
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, okay, let's just get into now curriculum content. Of course, there's been claims that the content is a bit too much. The junior secondary school content is a bit too much. Do you agree?
You know, what people who do not know what learning is all about would definitely give comments based on pedestrian approach to learning. We are looking at developing the whole person. And therefore, you cannot say that somebody must just learn mathematics, but not learn religion.
Right.
Because you also need values. You cannot just learn mathematics or religion, and you don't know how to wash your hands. Therefore, the value of health education. You cannot say you don't even know your environment, so social studies is irrelevant. The curriculum is well designed, and it is well tested. The subjects are many, but this is a foundation because it's called junior school. At the end of the 3 years of the junior school, the learners will be going to different pathways. So we are giving the opportunity for learners to have diverse choices according to ability and talent and skills. Yes.
In terms of, costs that we were talking about earlier, public schools cannot be able to afford. So if there's a parent who's watching at this particular point, I mean, what would you really tell them, being that the schools are being opened on 23rd? Do they really have hope of taking their kids to grade 7 with all these requirements put in place?
At least every parent must take the parental obligations. And by the way, why were they taking them to grade 6 in the first place, when they knew very well that when they reached grade 6, they were going to transit to junior secondary school? The cost is a must, but I think in Kenya, education is also a right, and somebody must take that right the government, I can see, I laud the government for taking the basic burden to build laboratories. Now the parents must prepare the child to go to school. They must now prepare to buy uniform, just like a normal basic need for a household, that every person in that household should be given a dress. So they are buying uniform to make sure that the child is comfortable in school. That is not asking too much from parents. And then buy shoes and buy stockings. And then also ensure that the child, when they are going to school, they don't go hungry. There should be a preparation for lunch and so on. So this is something which is a debate which is there. The cost of education in Kenya surely is high, but we have to take responsibility as citizens that if we wait for the government to do everything for us, then we will be admitting or welcoming ignorance and poverty in our institutions or in our homes. The society must be ready to pay the price of education, and that one is on every one of us.
Right. Last but not least, let's talk about the teachers. I mean, there are some requirements that you need to have a diploma or a degree as a teacher to even teach the secondary schools. Do you think all the qualified teachers will get an opportunity, employment opportunity, when it comes to now the
currently the number of employed graduates are just so many, and I don't think all of them may be absorbed at one go. But I have seen, and I really appreciate the government effort, that they have really put a mechanism that this year alone, and the first in the history of this country, they are going to engage 31,000 teachers. That is a landmark kind of strategy that the government want to engage the teachers. The teachers who may not have gotten the jobs could still be also getting jobs in the private sector, awaiting the government employment if it may come. So that is the state of affairs. We have overproduced teachers in this country. This is because of poor planning. We needed to match what the industry requirements has and what our institutions are also producing in terms of professionals. Right. Because it takes a lot of resources to train a teacher. Yes.
Finally, just before we wrap up, how do you think CBC has performed so far?
So far, the learning experience of those in primary grade PP1 up to grade 6 has been marvelous. By the way, the learners are very excited. They are more free, they engage, and they feel there is no stress as the current system has. So in my view, one thing which has undermined it is the quality of feedback and quality of assessment that needs to be addressed. So in that manner, I would be expecting going forward that the Ministry of Education up its game, it becomes so realistic. The Teacher Service Commission hires teachers and induct the same teachers to approach the CBC, because beginnings usually have problems. Even in the religious line, I'm a Christian.
Right.
Those who are coming out to be first Christians had to deal with the issues whether Jesus was God or man.
Right.
So these are things which are there. So we have issues with the beginnings. Like now the transition, the cost, and the issue of the children are still young, which has made the cost of education and so on. So these are things which are at least need to be addressed. But we must have hope that this is our education. Education is an enabler.
For sure.
In the 21st century, we must people who are very versatile, who thinks in 3 dimensions, not the way I used to think when I finished primary.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Of course, that is the Secretary General of KUPPET, just talking about the level of preparedness of junior secondary schools. But that's where we wrap up News Center. But I want to leave you with pictures of the Paso Parade that is currently